Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
The human experience is colliding particles at nearly the speed of light with my guest tonight, Dr. Florian Goertz. Florian, it's such a pleasure to have you with us. Welcome.
Hello, Xavier. Nice to talk to you.
Florian, let's just start this conversation by going over a little bit of your education and your background. How did you get to working at CERN?
So first, I studied physics in Germany, in Mainz. That's more or less a small city in the region of Frankfurt, so southwest Germany. I obtained my PhD from Mainz University after getting my master there. Then I went as a postdoctoral researcher. I went to Switzerland, to ETH Zurich, where I spent 3 years doing research, a little bit of teaching. And then I applied for a fellowship at CERN. And in last year, October, I started working here in the theory department of CERN.
So my physics is lackluster at best. I mean, I'm pretty good at math, but I think we're gonna have to simplify and make it a little bit entertaining for the people who are listening. What exactly is going on at CERN? I mean, what are you guys doing over there?
One thing that was also in the media quite present was the discovery of the Higgs Boson. So, we were searching for that particle for decades, also at the former accelerator, the former world's biggest accelerator was in the US at Fermilab, where people were searching for it. And here at CERN, we finally found the Higgs Boson 3 years ago. And this was really a big step in the understanding of the universe, because this particle was the last missing ingredient for the model that we call the standard model of particle physics, which is, as far as we know, the best description of the most fundamental properties of nature that we have so far.
Can you tell us more about this Higgs boson? I mean, why is it so important?
Yeah, exactly. Without this Higgs boson, or without this mechanism where the Higgs boson emerges finally, all elementary particles would be massless. There would be no, it's very hard to consistently give mass to particles, and the Higgs mechanism provides one mechanism to do so consistently in the theory. And if we would not have found that boson, we would have been puzzled and would have needed to think further what gives mass to particles, because without mass for elementary particles, the universe as we see it now could not exist. So it's really very basic fundamental science, understanding why we are all here. Without such a mechanism, we would not have life as we have it here on Earth.
So would you call this the greatest, scientific discovery known to man?
It's certainly one of the greatest discoveries. It's having found that mechanism is probably not important to our everyday life. So without knowing this precise mechanism, we could live as with knowing it. But it was one of the biggest mysteries in our field, how we can give mass to particles in a consistent way. And there were a model for doing this proposed by a bunch of people in the 1960s. So it was 50 years ago that this mechanism was proposed by Peter Higgs and others who shared the Nobel Prize also recently, together with François Englert. And I must say it's really amazing that 50 years ago such a mechanism was proposed, and 50 years later we built the biggest experiment that mankind has ever built here at CERN. There was a Large Hadron Collider, and we could now more or less certainly verify this mechanism. We could verify this mechanism for sure, but there are still details if it's really the Higgs boson as it was thought to be, or if there's more beyond this particle. And that's also kind of my research. I tried to find out if this particle that we found here is really the one that was proposed 50 years ago, or if perhaps there's more interesting things going on around this.
There seems to be this wide range of canvassing opinions about, what you guys are doing, and, Shiva as sort of the mascot of CERN, and there are a lot of sort of religious people who think that there could be a wormhole that opens up or a black hole or something. I mean, how valid are these concerns?
I mean, these concerns about black holes were taken seriously, and there even have been studies on that. So, okay, fortunately, in the first run of the LHC, which already finished, we didn't create a wormhole, and was also not really expected. So now we are getting to higher energies, but I think we can be relieved, because there are serious arguments against the emergence of a wormhole. So let me say for a black hole. Let me say for 1 minute why people thought that there could be black holes at the LHC. The reason is that we have this model that I was mentioning, the standard model, but we think that it will be not valid anymore once we reach a certain energy regimes. And then there are proposals how this most fundamental model of nature could be extended. And in some of these proposals, the Planck scale, so like the fundamental scale of gravity, were also the concept of space-time needs to be changed, would already appear at energies that we could probe here. So it's very special models that predict that something really extreme could happen at this energy. So in our standard models, nothing like that would happen. But we can be relieved, because there are various arguments against the creation of a black hole here. One of them is, for example, in the cosmic radiation that hits our Earth all the time. We also have very energetic collisions. Okay, it's just that we don't have so many collisions at a time, but we have these very energetic collisions. And for example, we would have seen already an event like that before, if it could happen. So, I mean, it has been taken seriously, but many experts in the field have found out that we will not create a black hole here at the LHC, also when we turn it on again.
So, I mean, have you guys fired it up again since the first time now?
Yeah, now we're just in the preparation for the next long run. So there was a long shutdown because we needed to prepare the machine for the running now at higher energies. Before we were running at 7 tera electron volt or 8 tera electron volt, and now we will more or less double the energy. And there we needed some preparation to do that. But now the machine people are just putting it again on work, and first collisions are about to happen right now. So on Easter they managed again to set up the machine, to inject the beams, and now the first physics. This will take some time, but now we're just, as we speak, just people are working to set it up again.
Okay, very interesting. So, I mean, you talk about the standard model of nature and reality. What is that? Can you go into that a little bit more, please?
Yes, sure. I mean, we have, we see around us is in matter, and I mean the what things are made of. Yeah, I mean the atoms. These are made out of matter particles like protons and neutrons, and these consist of this is what you also learn in school, and this consists of even more fundamental particles. So protons and neutrons consist of quarks. Perhaps you heard about that. It's a little bit strange name, but this is what we think now is the most fundamental constituent of the matter. Yeah, like the desk I'm sitting in front of it. It's made out of atoms, protons, neutrons, and the most fundamental particles are quarks. These have been discovered. I mean, we are sure that they exist. But for example, we don't know if there could be something even more fundamental. But at this level, with the quarks, how matter is described, this is done in the standard model of particle physics. We assume that the most fundamental matter particles are these quarks and also the leptons. This is another kind of particles like electrons that are running around around the protons to form atoms. So this is the matter part, yeah, and then there are the forces. So all these matter particles interact, and they interact with forces, and forces are also described by particles. For example, you know the electromagnetic force, yeah, like magnetic force or electric force. It's the same thing, yeah, due to Einstein, and this is mediated by the exchange of photons, and this is described how this behaves, how the interaction strength is, and how the particles really interact is described by this theory, which is called the standard model of particle physics. It has two more forces that are described in it. This is the weak force, which mediates nuclear decays, and also the strong force, which makes atoms, the constituents, the quarks, bind together in the nucleus. So these are the three forces that are described by this standard model of particle physics. But there's a fourth force, gravity, that everyone knows about. This is not described by this model. So this is not such a big problem because gravity is very weak. So the standard model describes the other three forces that we know in nature. But for example, one thing we are after is also trying to find a bigger theory that also embeds gravity as a force. So we know already, also due to many other reasons, that the standard model is not the final answer. It's a model that we now use to describe particle physics at the most fundamental level, but there are more reasons that we think that if we go to very, very small distances, probe really most elementary nature of nature, that then we need a new model finally, which will replace this model.
So my understanding of this big device, it's this huge machine underground the Earth, and it's like a big gun, right? Electromagnetic gun that's firing these protons at themselves, and they're colliding, and then you're observing the collision. Correct?
Right. We inject two beams of protons here, and they will collide at certain points on these rings. So they circle in opposite directions through these rings, through the LHC, and they will collide. And then they are very energetic because they will be accelerated all the time to nearly the speed of light. And then they will have a really large energy, and then they will collide. And you can imagine it like a very, very big microscope. Yeah. So with an optical microscope, for example, you can magnify things, you can look into details. But if you really want to probe really smaller distances, to look closer and closer and closer, you need then to go to electron microscope. And the LHC is really, you can magnify this by orders of magnitude, then you go to the LHC. It's really like the biggest microscope that we have on Earth. We can really look so deep into the matter and look what is going on the most fundamental level, really what binds the world's innermost core together. This is really the question we want to address here. And therefore we need to build this really, really, really large machine to accelerate this proton so far that we can really look into the smallest distances. So it's really interesting.
That is very interesting. So since you guys have already found the Higgs boson, then what in your opinion would be the next most remarkable thing that you could find from this search?
This is a very good question. Yeah, this is also shapes also our field, will shape our field, what we will discover next. So because we knew before we built the LHC, that we need to find something here. Yeah, if we would not have found the Higgs boson, we were sure we would find something else. We had kind of a no-lose theorem, and the reason was that we knew the standard model of particle physics that I was mentioning so many times already would not be complete without this Higgs boson. Yeah? And if you take it away from it, it will break down at certain energies. And here at the LHC, we just built this machine at this energy that we really can test these energies where the standard model would break down without the Higgs boson. So now the Higgs boson emerged, we found it. Yeah, so we know the standard model will be valid, at least for some more regime and energies. But the difficult thing is really that it's difficult to find another no-lose theorem. Yeah, so for the LHC, we really knew either we will find the Higgs boson or something else for the next machine. So we are really also hoping that there will be new colliders after the LHC. We are thinking hard, really, to really make the point what we need to discover. So why we are building these machines. And there are many, many reasons that we think the standard model is not the final theory. One I was already mentioning was that it doesn't describe gravity, but there's also something funny in this sector of the Higgs boson, because the Higgs boson, if you compare it to fundamental mass scales that we have in nature, is really light. And in principle, the most natural value for its mass would be orders of magnitude higher. So we don't understand why it's really so light that we can produce it here. And this drives also to build models beyond this model that we have now to understand how the Higgs boson can keep so light. Because the physics that we imagine that should be out there would make the Higgs boson much, much heavier than it is now. And there are other models beyond the standard model that can explain why it's so light. And we're searching for these models. One of them is called supersymmetry. So also, perhaps you already heard about it because it's also quite popular, where to every particle that was already mentioned, some of them in the standard model, you would have a super partner of it that would help to keep this mass of the Higgs boson so light. And so we're searching for these super partners, for example. We're searching for this copy of the standard model, of these partners of the standard model that could explain why the Higgs boson behaves as it behaves. So this is one big path where we have much hopes. Another path is also the Higgs boson, as we see it now, is also a fundamental particle. But it could also be that it's composed of something more fundamental. And this would also solve many of the questions that we ask ourselves now, why really the Higgs particle behaves as it behaves. So we're also searching for a substructure in this particle. Yeah, and for example, also in supersymmetry, the other theory I was mentioning, there's not only one Higgs boson, so there could be more. So we're also searching for other brothers of these Higgs bosons. There's really, I could continue for hours. There's really much we think that should be out there and which should be discovered. Just we need to find out how we can produce it. Yeah, this is the important question.
Wow, very, very intriguing. So, from what I'm understanding, you guys were, this is basically, at first you were confirming a theory that was developed in 1964 by Peter Higgs, and you were able to discover this elementary sort of particle and confirm it. And now you've doubled the energy in this device, and you're trying to confirm more so the standard model and develop it further. You don't know what you'll find?
We have some ideas what we might find, but right now we're not sure what we will find. So on one side, we are testing this standard model, as you correctly said, to more and more precision. Yeah? So we will measure the properties of this Higgs boson, how it decays to other particles of the standard model. We'll measure other interactions of particles in the standard model to more and more accuracy, to be able to see deviations there. Because these models that I was mentioning before that could replace the standard model at some point, they would predict small differences in, for example, how the Higgs boson behaves. These are very hard to see if you just produce a few Higgs bosons. You really need to produce many of them. You need a large statistics to be able to really dig out these small differences in the behavior from the large sample. So this is the program that is starting now, really trying to be more and more precise and really to, if we be pessimistic, to more and more confirm the standard model, or to be optimistic, perhaps we see a little deviation in these properties. Perhaps we produce a little bit more Higgs bosons that our theory predicted, or we produce a little bit less. And then we can see which theories would predict that and how they could solve the problems of the current theory. So this is really the precision program that we're doing here. But also we have the hope that just as we produce these Higgs bosons, we might produce other new particles, like, for example, another force carrier. So, for example, we might discover a fifth force, in addition to the known forces, or further matter particles. And this is really what we're really excited now for these new things to come.
I think it's very interesting just because, I don't think the technology to do an experiment like this has ever existed before. Do you think it's possible that we could maybe spawn a mini universe by doing this experiment?
Yeah, I can't see how this could be done. Extreme things can really happen once we hit the Planck scale, which I was saying is the scale of gravity. But this is really orders of magnitude beyond what we can do with this machine here. So we are really more after creating new particles, unless some theories are true that were proposed, for example, by Nima Hamed, a very famous physicist from the US, and Giatwali Savastimopoulos several years ago, where this very fundamental scale, the Planck scale, would not be out of reach. So this is also, I mean, right now, the data doesn't look like this would be the case, because we would probably already see hints in our data to that. But one never knows. If we go to higher energies, we also might hit surprises. So in case the space-time would really look different from what we expect now, we might create very strange things like black holes or so. But as I said, these would not be dangerous. I must stress this. But we can see many interesting things, perhaps.
So I mean, let's go into what your life is like inside of CERN and what you do there on a regular basis. I mean, how does that happen? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have my office here. So we are together. We are two people per office here on the theory floor. So I must say, as a theorist, I'm trying to interpret the data that the LHC delivers. I'm trying to make predictions, what we would see at the LHC that will then be compared to what we really see. So this is my job. And people like us, we are not the majority here at CERN. So CERN has around 3,000 people working here regularly, and in the theory department we have perhaps 60 to 80 or so. So we are really a small group, and this big majority is really running the machine and analyzing the data and really doing the very important work to keep this machine going. What I'm doing, on the other hand, I could also do the same thing at another place. I don't need to be at the same place where this machine is, but it's very nice to be here, because if I have an idea, I can directly talk to the people that do really the measurements. This is really, I mean, this is right now, CERN is the most exciting place in the world for doing what I do, for doing particle physics, because you have really the experiment that tries to find your ideas just under yourself, yeah. And so what I do, I mean, I come to the office in the morning, I discuss with my colleagues, usually one has several projects at a time. One, for example, what I was working on recently was trying to find out how well we can measure not the production of one single Higgs boson, but of Higgs pairs. So producing two Higgs bosons in just one collision. So we produce many Higgs bosons, but usually in one collision we produce just one. But for example, one can, if one really tries hard and waits for a long time, one can also find the process of producing Higgs pairs. So I was studying the amount of Higgs pairs one would produce if the standard model of particle physics would not be the correct theory, but if we would have a deviation from this model. And I was parameterizing these deviations from this model in the most general way that one can do it, and then trying to understand really how far we can go, how many Higgs pairs we can produce, or if it can be less or so, and comparing with other measurements. So this is a project I'm just working on, and what it means daily. I mean, I sit in front of my computer. I'm programming. Yeah, I'm also thinking quite a lot, just sitting there and trying to think on new methods to improve things. I'm also, yeah, I mean, as a theorist, also a lot of my daily time goes in just sitting and thinking, because there are many things that are not understood in the current description of nature that we have, and it's about trying to understand where it might fail and how it could be improved. And then if you have an idea, you go to the next door and talk. Really, I mean, I'm really honored to be here, because many world's greatest experts are here, and I'm still rather young in my career as a fellow, so I can talk to the greatest experts in all the fields if I have a new idea and ask their opinion, and perhaps work with them and make some predictions that might be tested at this experiment where I'm just sitting here. So this is more or less one aspect of my daily life.
I don't know if you search the internet for what's going on at CERN, but people are worried. People are a bit scared. I mean, reasonably so. So I mean, let's dispel that fear. Let's sort of remove the veil. I mean, how can we understand better what is happening at LHC?
Yeah, I mean, well, one should really have no fear, because we are not doing something really which has never been done before. As I said, these collisions that we're performing here, they happen because in the universe we have particles that will be accelerated in fields in the universe. They will hit each other, and we're just making this experiment here on Earth. We're producing much more collisions that we can really learn about them. So it's just we are trying to understand the processes that happen in the universe, all over the universe. We're trying to understand them better by observing them. So this is really what we do at CERN. So we are really trying to have these processes here under our control. We can monitor what happens and really try to understand better what is happening in the world. And this can be a benefit for all of us. I mean, one never knows which applications can come out of this. So I would really have no fear in trying to understand better our universe. It's just about understanding it better. We're not changing anything yet.
Right. So, I mean, how do you think, you mentioned changing our lives, how do you think it could change the way that we live? I mean, in a practical way.
Yeah, right now I cannot tell that, but for example, also when electricity was discovered, I mean, it was first, it was not clear how useful it would be in the future. So it's always, I mean, this most fundamental research, before probably you don't know what will be the outcome, but there can be many outcomes. For example, also indirect outcomes like cancer therapy. For example, now in different places all over the world, particle accelerators are also used to treat cancer. And this is like a spin-off of this technique. It was not invented to do so, but it can be used. And there are more. So I think we just should always try to push really our boundaries of our understanding without knowing where it will lead. But there will always be innovations. For example, also, we communicate now via the World Wide Web. And this was invented at CERN. It was a spin-off from scientists trying to make their communication more efficient. And there are also innovations for industry. I mean, we have really here many parts of the accelerator really require new techniques, also from engineering, from industry. And this can also be used in the future. But okay, this is spin-offs, but okay, we never know what we might discover. Perhaps just referring to the example of electricity, perhaps we will discover something that will change our whole lives. If not, we still, I think everyone has a force inside them, really trying to understand why the universe is as it is, or how it will finally end, or if it will end ever, how it emerged. These are the questions we are trying to address here. For example, let me also mention that we can try to measure properties more exactly and answer these questions. I mean, what will be the fate of our universe? Also, how was the universe created? There's the theory of baryogenesis, that how the asymmetry between the matter and the antimatter was created. So during the Big Bang, matter and antimatter were created. So the big question is, why didn't it annihilate altogether again? So matter and antimatter, if they hit each other, they will annihilate. But it didn't all annihilate because we are here happily. And also we try to understand these questions, because when we measure these properties of all these particles, we can also find out why this happened. Why not all the matter and antimatter annihilated. So it's really first of all, about trying to understand why things are like they are, or how they will develop. And then there can be unexpected benefits for all of us.
Wow, this is very intriguing work. Any advice for budding physicists or particle physicists that are kind of want to pursue the field that you're pursuing?
Yeah, my first advice is always be interested, always be fascinated about the field. Not thinking we understood already most of it, always asking questions. And sky's the limit. I mean, never saying, okay, I can never reach this, always trying very hard. And first you need to be fascinated about it, and then just trying to go for it and speak with people.
I like that answer. Florian, should I just direct people to the CERN website, or is there a way to contact you?
Right now, I can be found on the CERN website, so on the theory department, I can be found. Yeah, I mean, there are my contact details in the theory division, and also one can also for applying for tours at CERN, one can write to the CERN contact address, and if one wants to make a tour of the facility here, I think I can suggest this to everyone. It's very fascinating. Also, when the accelerator is running and one cannot go to every point underground, there are also models of the thing, and there's much to see here on the campus.
Florian, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it was an honor to talk to you.
This is The Human Experience, guys. We're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for listening.